Here we're going to tie an intruder fly called the Evil Twin Brother. First thing we're going to do is just get our thread going here on a 20mm black Sanyo shank. This is a fairly small shank. You can tie it a little larger if you like. First thing we're going to do is we're going to tie in our intruder wire. I'm just using black intruder wire here. And we want a large enough loop where we can get our hook onto the wire. And that's usually about, I'm using a number 2 hook, so I think about an inch or so should be fine. We're just going to get it started here, and we're going to tie it in on each side of the shank. If you want, you can make sure that the hook will fit through that loop. Yeah, it'll just fit just fine. If anything, I could probably make it a little smaller. I'm going to take my thread forward and I'm going to pull the wire underneath the shank. And I'm going to lay down a couple of wraps just to keep that wire from coming undone, getting pulled loose on a big fish. Just kind of double it over. Cut it with the base of your scissors. Oopsie, cut a piece of that sharp wire. And we're going to take our thread to the rear of the fly. We're going to tie in some blue STS Trilobal dubbing. We're going to build up a little ball at the rear of the fly. Adds a little bit of color. You got to be careful not to overdo it with the dubbing. This Trilobal is fairly slippery, difficult to dub, so I just kind of do a wrap or two, pull it down with my fingers, really bind it to the thread. Once we have our little ball going there, we're going to take a little bit of purple sparkle braid, get that ready, also a little bit of blue wire. We're going to tie that blue wire in first, right on the side of the hook. And we're going to tie in our purple sparkle braid. Take our thread forward, we'll close the loop of that eye. We're going to take that purple sparkle braid, we're going to wrap it around the shank. We're going to build a little bit of a taper coming forward. Careful not to overdo it. Capture it. And we're going to take that blue wire, we're going to counter wrap it through our sparkle braid. This will lock it into place. Now we're ready for our collar material, which will be a natural guinea feather that I've stripped off all the poofy stuff at the base. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take those fibers and stroke them backwards on the fly, or on the stem. That'll give me a nice tip to tie in with. And I could trim out that tip. Now I'm going to take this guinea feather, I'm going to try to stroke all these fibers rearward, kind of coax them back. Sometimes you get a stubborn feather that doesn't want to cooperate and you just kind of have to force them to lay back. All we're doing is building a little collar. we go. You can capture that with your thread. Trim out the stem. Now we're going to take this Guinea, we're going to kind of split the clumps, then we're going to force the fibers downward on the fly. Just kind of draw them down. We'll lay just a couple of wraps back onto a few of these fibers. That'll kind of help force them to lay down the way we want them to. Just like so. Now we're ready for the wing. For that, we're going to use purple Arctic fox. And you got to be careful not to overdo it with the fox. We're just looking for a little wing. First portion will be purple, and we're going to tie in a little black. There we go. So I have the purple in. We'll move on to the black. I'm going to try to strip out most of the under fur too on this fox. All that poofy stuff at the base. Do the same thing with the black. Now we're ready to tie in the collar, which is going to be a little bit of black Schlappen. Got to be careful not to overdo it at this point. Less is more with this front collar. Tied it in by the tip. Take my thread to the eye. Same thing, we're going to take this Schlappen, we're going to coax those fibers backwards with each wrap. Forcing them to lay down. Once I get to the end of the stem, I can just capture it. And at this point, you can switch to your colored thread. You can use purple or blue, pink. I'm just going to use a little bit of shell pink. Just have another bobbin ready to go. Now we're going to add just a couple of accents here. First is going to be a little bit of purple Amherst. Could also use blue. Going to be using this from the center tail. We're going to take 3 strips from the feather, 3 fibers. We want these to lay down kind of on the side of the fly, kind of the top portion, but the side. We want them to be fairly long as well. We want them to be longer than the fox. There we go. And we do 2 sets, or 2 of these, 1 set. We're going to have 2 sets total. We're going to lay in some natural here in a second after we get the purple all tied in. We could trim out the butts of these, the excess. Trying to get these to lay down the way you want them. That one's not going to cooperate with me. There we go. Clean up the head here. Whip finish. If you have jungle cock, you can add some jungle cock nails to the side of the fly. And the last thing to do is just add the intruder hook, using just a Daiichi intruder hook here. Just slip it over the back. And that's all there is to the evil twin brother. Fairly easy fly to tie. Just a lot of steps to it. And that's all there is to it.